Hello everyone, welcome to the Pricing Masters. This is the second edition where we focus more on pricing, more on product, more on willingness to pay. Hi Maciej, what is the topic of today's discussion?
Well, today, and something that we have agreed before this episode, today we're going to discuss how to build a pricing according to different buyer personas. In other words, how to achieve a thing we call pricing persona fit.
Something new.
Well, not necessarily new. The whole concept is a job theory created by Clayton Christensen in like 80s, right? So the guy who built the innovator's dilemma. And basically the concept is a different approach towards the segmentation of the customer.
Okay, so framework aside, or maybe theory aside, where would you start?
So basically this changes the concept of segments from the very classical one, like it changes the concept of segmentations from demographics, like who am I, where I live, how old am I, what is my income, family status.
See, it's not important anymore.
Well, not that much. And it's nice, but on top, it rather focuses on the actual problems and jobs people need to perform in order to solve this problem.
Okay, let's go with any example. Do you know any example from maybe our clients?
Well, sure. So for instance, let's take one of our clients, time tracking software. We can also use work time, another time tracking software. We have done few of these projects. So I somewhat feel that this is a good example. So
what can you do with time tracking?
Yeah. So for instance, as a legal company, like I have legal practice, I'm a lawyer,
Professional?
Yeah, not a professional service, exactly. And one of the biggest challenges I have as a professional services company is my entire business model, which is I am selling time for money. In other words, when I work for a client, I create billable hours.
Okay, so in order to earn money, I need to track.
I need to know how much I spend on this customer, like how many hours effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you can use the framework that we are displayed right now, the jobs to be done framework, very simple one. But basically, it is all about when trying to bill my customers according to the time I spend on them. In this situation, I'm using the Excel and I'm asking my employees to fill the Excel every week or whatever, bi-weekly, on which customers you actually worked.
And of course, it is an Excel.
It's an Excel. It's always an Excel. But in this situation, I'm using this. It's manual. It's not automated. It's not that great in terms of user experience. But
and of course, it takes time, right?
It takes time. And it's not accurate because people forget on what they worked on, and they don't bill accordingly. They basically underestimate the time.
And typically it's not live, right? Because you fill it in.
Exactly. So this is like several results. What I mentioned in the session, I have certain amount of objective problems that I'm trying to solve. And my employees struggle to fill it properly. They don't have the full they don't do it in real time. Basically, there are a lot of problems that they face. And me, personally, as an owner and as a partner, I struggle. This is the problem. I struggle with something. I struggle with actually having full visibility into my business, understanding how many hours did we actually spend on the customer, and therefore I don't have full visibility, and hence I have a hard time in actually increasing efficiency of my business, profitability or whatever, because I'm, for instance, underbilling my customers.
And this is actually okay case, I guess, when you underbill your client. Of course, it's not great, but what if you're overbilling?
Yes, and this is another layer, which is also this emotional factor, because I want to feel and be perceived as a professional, as a trusted advisor, exactly. So a person that does the job well, so the legal firm that does the job well and actually builds a certain impact, right? So as you can see with this, when trying to, in this situation, people struggle to and want to feel and be perceived. This is the jobs to be done framework. There are different approaches to it, but if you take this to the pricing example, you can easily see that as a legal company, I might have a different problem. But if you take this to, for instance, our case at Valueships, we don't build customers based on that our spec, but what we do is we usually have fixed projects. But in our case, this is all about efficiency, understanding where we are in the business, how we are pricing our services, and this is a totally different use case that I'm trying to be.
So as far as I understand, with jobs to be done, first of all, you can learn what problem you are solving. Then you can find the solution to this problem. And within this this framework, you can actually fill in different personas with the same solution. You can solve with your solution problems of different personas.
Sure, but also there's problem solutions, which is like kind of the obvious startup thing. But also you need to put it in a certain situational context. So when trying to do something I'm struggling with, right? So this is the change. So it's not only we are solving this problem with this product. This is like in this situation we are solving this. So this is like another layer that is actually building up on that. But whatever you do, it still allows you to build a price. There are different personas and different use cases that are actually coming.
Basically, we actually highly recommend jobs to be done framework. It can help with pricing. It can also help with positioning with product. But then you need to go a bit deeper, right? Because you know what your customer prefer, but are they willing to pay for it?
Yeah. So this is one highlight layer usually, and this is something that we're showing. This is something that we are showing right now. This is the framework called we are calling it Value Grid.
Valueships, Value Grids.
Of course.
It's not a job. So
great. But this is, I don't know if this is going to be cut.
But
yeah, it's we leave up to the direct. Having said that, there is a grid between preference of a particular feature that we want in the product versus the
preference, something that your customers would like to have, right?
Right. Yeah. So this is something I want, right? This is something I wanted. This is on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you actually
think I want everything.
Of course, I want, like, at least that's what product managers, founders, and CEOs feel. That people really want to have everything in the product, and so they bundle everything together into one product and all in one.
And then you have the front end stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Or they either build it as a modular, or they either build it as a singular. But this is the problem. So we have the feature preference, and on the y-axis you have the willingness to pay, right? And in this episode, I think we should cover while the value grid is dividing the features, as we know. I think you have a great explanation that you're using to the customers.
Yes. So for me, what we're working with startups actually and introducing value grid, for me, this is super important for my clients to understand that what I prefer is actually not the same that I'm willing to pay for. And while talking about SaaS, sometimes I have the feeling that we can really learn from the industries that are a bit more mature than SaaS. And I have I think a nice example that speaks to many of my clients. And this is an example of a car, right? There's an alarm. In every car, you have an alarm, right? And if you think about it, everyone would like to have an alarm. There's a very high preference towards having an alarm in your car. Nevertheless, for some reason, cars don't differentiate themselves through the alarms. Why? My hypothesis is that because there is a very small willingness to pay in the alarm. And then you might ask yourself a question, okay, so how cars differentiate themselves in one model? And of course, what is it? Acceleration, right? So I want to accelerate. I want to be faster. So I need to have a bigger engine. And that's if you think about it, engine or like this BMW, stuff like this. Those are the things that high preference. Many people would like to accelerate better, like want to be faster. And many people would like to pay for it a bit more. That is why big engine is a differentiator. So a feature with high willingness to pay and high preference An alarm is a feature, high preference and with low willingness to pay. And how does it translate to the business? That's pretty simple. You can find an alarm in every car, in every new car, but you don't find 500 or 400 horsepower engine in every car.
Yeah.
And I think it might work exactly the same in SaaS.
Yeah, it actually works the same as SaaS. So the alarm, this is the core feature, right? So the other word for it is like table stakes, right? So this is the minimum that you need to put into the upper table to even play, right? So this is something that no one really thinks of when purchasing a new car, right? The alarm has to be there. It wasn't like this like 20 years or 30 years ago when alarm was still relatively new, so you could differentiate it, but
Coming back to
the innovation that it's actually became popular. Now you're differentiating it you can differentiate by alarm, you can obviously differentiate it by the M engine, but also there are like add-ons, right? With high willingness to pay, but only for a minor fraction of people.
And coming back to the car, what you can find in like with M engines and in like normal engines, leather seats. Now you can have leather seats in a car with a very small engine. You can have leather seats in the car with a very big engine. So this is a classical type of a feature, which is an add-on. And then filling in the whole brick, you also have an undercarriage, right? So undercarriage in every...
No one cares.
No one cares. Like there like, you know, I use this example. I know that there are some people...
The only people caring about the undercarriage is a towel.
Yeah, yes, because they need to wash. But nevertheless, those are the features that typically you do not communicate, because this is what you need in order for your product to work. And you know, while using this, you know, funny examples of a car, I think we need to understand why it is so important, and why it is so important, and what was, you know, extremely important to me while deciding to talk about it, present it to my clients, was the research when people were comparing how you, as a product owner, as a company owner, how you perceive your features
versus this chart that we're like now that shows that what worldwide product leaders indicated their building is coming directly from the product or research
versus how your clients are perceiving it. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, like so basically we think of our products, we think that all features we're building are differentiators.
So we are building a car with only an
everything, like you're building you exactly, while in fact they're not. And very often you should be building the product from the best version of themselves, but we should be building the most expensive product and then limit the features in. But too often with the MVPs versions, we are building the limited version and trying to add stuff which is totally different. So rather we should be focusing on differentiators and then cutting them down to the core features. In other words, it's like for instance, airlifts, right? When there was like first class, everything was a first class back in the days. Then they decided to add the business class. Then there was just like the economy class, right? And
in the future,
in Ryanair, we'll have second and third class if that was even possible. But this is just how companies can think of it and how they can basically feed off the features they're building. So just to conclude this aspect, then we'll go into how to measure it in a second. You have the core features with high preference but low willingness to pay. Differentiators on the kind of upper right corner in this matrix. High willingness to pay, high importance. Add-ons with low importance for some people but high willingness to pay. In other words, people want to pay for it, but not everyone. And at the end, there's like trash lamp that no one really cares about, the undercarriage example. And this is the basic framework that allows you, even if you don't do the research, which we're going to elaborate in a minute, even if you don't do this research, just take the whiteboard, put the stickers on it, and try to think of it consciously on what are the things that you're building. Use the yellow cards from one persona, use the pink ones for the different persona, use the green ones for another persona.
And that's how actually two frameworks can go hand in hand. So exactly my point. If you're building a product, if you're going into the good, better, best model, most likely the first or the cheapest plan should consist of the features that are in the undercarriage and table stake, and then you build next versions or better versions with differentiators. And while I think we conveyed the message that it is important to do that, the question is how. And I think we need to elaborate on two things. First of all, if you're a startup, for me, working or being a mentor to different startups when they do not have money to spend on the survey, I actually tell them two things. First, doing the IDIs,
in-depth interviews,
interviews,
customer development interview.
Exactly. Ask about willingness to pay. Just add this layer frequently before. Just don't do it.
They are afraid to ask for the price, right?
Or the willingness to pay. Secondly, if you have, I don't know, your friends, people who support your product, prospective clients, distribute small, simple Excel with a description of the feature, and then ask your prospective clients, friends, family, whoever, to actually put for a number from 0 to 10 on the willingness to pay axis and on the preference axis. It will be eye-opening exercise for you. I've done it 100 times with small companies, and after sitting in the room for 1 hour assessing all the features, it turned out that the value or the perception of the features for the founder was totally different versus to the people who were sitting on the others. But thinking about this, I know that they're also a bit more challenging or more accurate.
Well, there is one. There are more of them, but something that we as Valueships are using, but also something that I recommend to the customers, not only us, but many other consultancies in the world are also recommending this, which is connection between the price sensitivity meter, which we have discussed in the previous season when I was explaining the research method. And there's MaxDiff, which I also explained, but today I wanted to focus on this, only on the feature cases.
Let's focus on the MaxDiff.
Yeah, let's focus on the MaxDiff, aka best worst choice question. Basically, it asks the customer to choose from the particular feature set. This allows the customer to choose the best and the worst option. And you rotate this 8 to 10 times usually, so you compare analytics to SLA, analytics to, integrations with Slack.
Just to be crystal
different aspects
clear here, right? Your people who are that you are surveying are you need to take into consideration or just nominate, so to say, 6 to 8 features, right?
The ones that you think are critical, and then once they survey it, let me just finish this. Once they survey it, you kind of get the output that we're displaying now, which is the analytics which is like the analytical present visualization of the preferences on the magnitude of +1, they're like the feature that everyone wants, -1, they're like the feature that no one really wants. And this usually creates like the weeks that we like to talk about it this way. And what we have recently done for one of our customers, we have run the internal survey for like 40 people in the company, and we have asked 200 or 100 something people, the clients of this company, and the results were literally, diagonal, so to say. So in other words, what our customer thought is important for the customers was mentioned as not really that great.
Great. So actually, concluding the first episode of the second pricing masters, we highly recommend to use jobs to be done framework as a first thing while thinking about your monetization model. Then add on top the value grid. Remember, things that people prefer are not the same things that people are willing to pay for. Sometimes they are those things are the same, but not always they are the same. If you are at the beginning of your product development, You can use simple methods to understand willingness to pay and preference. Ask your friends, ask your prospective users, use this knowledge during the IDIs. If you have a bit more budget and you are thinking about redesigning your monetization methods, they are good survey methods that can help you with willingness to pay and preferences. That would have been PSN that we've covered in the previous episode, and then would have that would have been a MaxDiff method that we highly recommend for you to use. Any last thoughts?
Well, obviously jobs to be done framework, use the jobs to be done, something that we have covered at the beginning. This is a very good exercise to rethink your entire, not only pricing, but entire product strategy. Similarly to what you said, it is a good exercise both for, early stage startups, pre-MVP companies, but also to the companies that are already getting initial product marketing. So this is important. Secondly, I recommend running this MaxDiff surveys, these qualitative questions that you ask as much as you can. Make it a part of your customer development process and build it on that. This is, I think, the key message of jobs to be done and the research process. This is something that really opens the eyes of our customers, and this is something that we usually recommend as a, kind of target operating model.
So thank you very much. My name is Kris Szyszkiewicz. This is Maciej Wilczyński. Don't forget to subscribe to Pricing Masters. In next episodes, we'll go deeper into pricing in SaaS.